Welcome back to Gallagher Shots. My name's Andy, and I'm finally doing the away save for the first time in about 5 months. Obviously, season came back, then I probably got coronavirus, so it's all been a bit all over the place. Before the break, we were still a bit terrified of relegation and still dreaming of an FA Cup final. Both of those things are over, and it looks like our season's going to sort of just plod to a close now. One team whose season is still a bit tasty is our next opponents, Watford, who find themselves 4 points clear of trouble with only 4 games left after a crucial 2-1 win against Norwich. The next fixture is, of course, mathematically safe Newcastle United Football Club TM. And this game is going to air on Amazon Prime on Saturday. So introducing our special guest, it's Andy from the Hornets Nest. Andy, thanks for coming on.
No worries. Thanks for inviting me on.
Yeah, no problem. So I saw on your Twitter feed that you said it was a miracle that you were still outside the bottom 3. What's the general feeling of Watford at the moment?
I think if you'd asked me that before the game against Norwich, morale was definitely sort of maybe at an all-time low, I'd say. It is a genuine miracle that we are still outside the relegation zone. Somehow Bournemouth, Aston Villa and Norwich have been that little bit more terrible than us. We've been absolutely atrocious this season. You know, you don't need me to tell you we've gone through 3. We're on our 3rd head coach this season. We deserve to be where we are. It's been horrendous, and I don't think any Watford fan, even the most pessimistic of Watford fans, saw us anticipated us being in a relegation scrap after last season. You know, within I think 3 games before the end of the season, we were still in a shot for that 7th spot. Of course, the FA Cup final. So it's been a tough one. But that win against Norwich, absolutely crucial. I know we're speaking currently at half time in the Thursday night game. So I'm still a little bit on edge. I've reached that stage where I'm cheering other clubs. You know, I've been a Wolves supporter for like the first 3 weeks after lockdown. I've had to support Crystal Palace, and this evening, when we're recording, I'm having to support Spurs and United. So it's
a horrible situation.
It's awful. And watching the first half of Bournemouth Spurs are being very Spursy. And I think every football fan knows what I mean when I say Spursy. So it's still a very tense evening, even though Watford aren't playing. But that win against Norwich, absolutely crucial. And the morale amongst supporters, if Bournemouth and Villa fail to get any points in their games, then it's going to be, well, I'd say looking good, but obviously still not mathematically possible. But morale and confidence will be much, much higher.
Yeah, I saw the highlights of that Norwich game, and what a way to win it with a Danny Welbeck bicycle kick, if I'm right in saying, wasn't it?
Yeah, we've clearly got a thing for bicycle kicks. Nick Wright scored a famous one in our playoff final in '99. Yeah, Craig Dawson scoring against Leicester just after the restart. We seem to be practicing them. Apparently, it's something you don't practice on the training ground, but clearly there's some form of practice going on down at London Colney. But yeah, what a way to win it! And if his first goals in the Premier League since 2018, so what a way to get it.
Yeah. I think Watford seem to be, like you say, a bit of an odd team. I remember might have only been last season or maybe the year before you came to our place and annihilated us. Delafeu tore us a new one, and the guy who sits next to me every week said that's one of the best performances I've ever seen at St James's Park. You were a team who were really exciting, and then you seem to just do what Watford seem to do, where you get a new manager, you look really good for a few months, and then it all sort of just capitulates. Seemed to happen again with Pearson, where you had a little bit of new manager bounce, beat some big teams, Man United, Wolves, and then obviously eventually Liverpool, which was a hilarious game to watch with my Liverpool supporting girlfriend. But did the new manager bounce seem to happen with Pearson and then die off again?
Yeah, you kind of get used to the merry-go-round. You know, we've had our current owners since 2020, and only in that time, Javier Gracia was the only manager after Gianfranco Zola, who was our first manager under the new regime, to stay on for more than a season. And you know, we constantly get asked about the manager merry-go-round down at Watford, and the revolving door that seems to be in place at Vicarage Road. And it can get a little frustrating because it's a model that clearly has worked for us. You know, promotion from the Championship, an FA Cup final, almost European football. What was frustrating about getting rid of Javi is, I think, for me and a lot of fans, we thought we'd found that stability in a manager, and then it was only after the first 4 games this season they decided to get rid of him and obviously bring back Sanchez Flores. And you know, hindsight's a wonderful thing, but
I mean, that
clearly
must have been a record for how quick a manager's gone. I think it was Frank de Boer at Palace who went after like 6 games, but they seemed like there was something else behind the scenes with him, that they were looking for a reason to get rid of him.
I think, I think the actual current record may still be Leroy Rossini at Torquay is 10 minutes. But Watford had Billy McKinley in 2014 in charge for 8 days, which sort of epitomises our revolving door policy. But yeah, it was very strange. You know, we sacked Javi. I think the rumours were that just his fighting spirit had kind of been knocked out of him. I think the FA Cup final didn't do us any good. I think we came into this season, we only made a couple of new signings, but pretty much the exact same squad that got absolutely hammered in that FA Cup final. And so confidence may have already been at a low at the very start of the campaign. And then, you know, Kike coming in, had a tiny bounce in the second half against Arsenal, and then got thumped 8-0 against City. So any chance of that
happens to the best of us with City, to be fair, as we've just found out.
Yeah, it's not nice. And then Pearson came in, and things were really good at the start. You know, like you said, we beat United, beat Wolves, obviously leading up to beat Liverpool. But there's been a few question marks over him over the last few days. You know, we're still throwing away silly points. I think just before lockdown anyway, back end of January, start of Feb, we lost 8 points in 3 consecutive games from winning positions against Villa, Everton and Brighton, which, you know, for a team in Watford's position, you just can't really afford to do. So there's still a few question marks. Some fans starting to question his tactics, his decision making with substitutions. So I'll put it on record now. It wouldn't surprise me if Pearson isn't in the dugout next season, regardless of what league Watford are playing in. I think this club kind of just needs a reset. Our squad's getting quite old. I think we just need to sort of find our identity again a little bit, really.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of clubs in the league in that position, isn't there? Where I think Bournemouth are another one where they seem to sort of just clung on, and they've lost any sense of sort of progression. And I think even if you look towards the top of the table, you've got Chelsea and Man United, and I guess Spurs to an extent, who have realised that they can't just keep sort of relying on the past. They do have to just sort of gut and start again. So yeah, it does seem like Watford are one of those teams where the foundation's in place. They just need to sort of say, right, we can't just be this team that just chops and changes and clings on. Obviously, we've been on the other side of it with keeping managers too long. I mean, we gave Alan Pardew an 8-year contract, which just ran out a couple of weeks ago. So, you know, it can go the other way. I mean, we're going to get onto tactics, but I saw that you lost to Palace, Burnley and Southampton, which are obviously teams around you, teams that you should be beating, and then you're beating the bigger clubs. Is that frustrating? Does that sort of show a lack of sort of mental strength in the squad, that they only want to seemingly show up for the big games?
Yeah, it's really annoying. You know, we obviously beat Liverpool 3-0, and then the following week facing Crystal Palace, lose that 1-0, and you think, well, if we can beat Liverpool, the best side, not just the Premier League, but in the world, you know, why can't we at least get a shot on target against Crystal Palace? It was incredibly frustrating. It's sort of been very, very yo-yo. You know, like I said, beat United, beat Wolves. Wolves are an excellent side this season. And then throw it away with against games against, you know, the likes of Brighton, Aston Villa, and the consistency just hasn't been there all season. That's been Watford's problem. The second we've started to get on a run and seem to have a little bit of confidence, we've then put in a really rubbish performance, and suddenly the confidence is just sapped again. I think that's been a constant problem this season. So for any manager that comes in, the first thing they have to do is try and just, rather than just raise the quality of the performance, they have to raise the confidence and the mentality of the squad, because at times you can see it's just been so low. We've conceded a goal and heads just drop. You know, only against Norwich, that was the first time we'd come from behind to win all season, which is, well, clearly not good enough. But I think it just shows the fragility, if you like, of the mentality of this current squad.
Yeah, everything you're saying there is usually all the hallmarks of a team that goes down. I mean, that sounds like the Newcastle teams that went down, where one goal and that's it, it's over. Teams only really showing up in the big games. I mean, with us, our French players would only turn up against Arsenal because they wanted the move there. And I can kind of understand your frustrations with that, because it is irritating when you do have some talent in your squad. I always think Watford have really good, they have good players who shouldn't be scrapping around every time. Do you think you are safe now? I know you said that there's 3 worse teams than you, which is never really a position you want to be in. But I personally think you're probably safe.
I think I've heard a lot of people say that since we beat Norwich. 4-point gap prior to Bournemouth and Villa's games against Spurs and United. But I actually took it upon myself to work out Bournemouth and Villa's points per game, and then work out how many points they could end up with, because you do that when you're in a relegation battle, like, oh, they could end up with this, and I think we might just scrape it if that's to be believed. But no, we're not. We're certainly not safe. I'm still watching watching Bournemouth and Villa's games in total. I'm a total bag of nerves, really. It's horrible, but they are rubbish. And I think Watford have the potential to stay in the Premier League with the lowest ever points total this season. I don't think playing behind closed doors is really helping. I think it would be a much different story if we were playing under normal conditions with normal home advantage. But if that happens, then that would officially make Watford the worst team in Premier League history, which would be
quite the accolade.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you'd probably take that at this point, wouldn't you?
I would definitely take it, but I certainly don't think we're safe until if Bournemouth and Villa lose and we somehow beat you guys on the weekend and we open up a 7-point gap, then I will think we are safe. But at the moment, when it's just 4 points, no chance.
It's 12 minutes past 7 and Bournemouth still 0-0. So I don't mean to put you under pressure right now. I'd love to get a live reaction on camera of a Callum Wilson winner in the last minute now. But
there'd be a lot of swearing if that happens.
Yeah, well, that's fine. You clearly haven't seen our videos. At the start of the season, did you have Newcastle down as a team you thought would go down?
Yes, I did, actually. I'll hold my hands up to that. I think my pre-season predictions were Norwich, Sheffield United and Newcastle.
Funnily enough.
Yeah, so horribly wrong with 2 of those. I just thought with Newcastle, with all the... because I speak to a lot of Newcastle fans with the podcast that I do, and just with the whole shenanigans off the pitch, I knew fans weren't happy, or the majority of fans weren't happy with the... and signing of Steve Bruce coming in. It just didn't feel like a happy place from the off. But I think, you got to give credit for the job that Steve Bruce has done at Newcastle, because it's been tremendous. And when your strikers haven't really been scoring, you've still managed to pop up with goals from elsewhere on the pitch. So I think, I've got a bit of egg on my face for putting you guys down as relegation favourites, and now my club's in the position that I thought you guys would be in.
Well, I don't think anyone would blame you, because it's been talked about to death, but the downgrade from Rafa to Bruce, it was so demoralising. Yeah. And there's such a massive divide now in the fan base where you've either got to hate Bruce or love him. There is a middle ground, which I think most fans are actually in, which is he's not the man to take us forward if we get new owners. He's probably not the right man to take us forward under Ashley, but he's done well this year. Yeah, you can't blame him. There's been times where he hasn't managed the squad very well. There's been times where he's tried to emulate the 5 at the back that was successful for us under Rafa, and he's failed miserably. There's times where he's left the gate completely open for teams to annihilate us, which never used to happen under Rafa. But we're in the. I think we're still in the top, fighting for the top 10. Like you say, with scorers, we've actually had 17 different goal scorers this season, which is the most in the league. And I think every player's probably got one. Like, that's how bad it's been. But yeah, we have stayed up. I thought we would go down. We found a way of winning games, and I think that's mainly been down to St. Maximin, to be honest. Yeah. I was going to ask you about sort of the way Newcastle can maybe exploit Watford, because I saw that you hadn't kept a clean sheet, I don't think, since the restart. Is he basically the one man that you're fearful for in Newcastle's team? Yeah,
absolutely. I think in every club that's sort of in our position, sort of not going to be challenging for Europe anytime soon, just looking to sort of maintain Premier League safety, there's always that sort of star player that each club has. Crystal Palace have got Wilfried Zaha, Watford have Ismail Assar, you guys have St. Maximin. It's sort of a trait of those kind of mid-table clubs. Everton, Richarlison, another example. But I'm very, very worried, because I do think our defence is championship quality. I think it stems. I don't think the recruitment's been too good, not just this season, but through an extended period of time. We've got an aging back line. The only defender we signed in last summer was Craig Dawson after West Brom got relegated.
And he's just a journeyman, really, isn't he?
Yeah, pretty much. He has.
He's all right.
He started off really, really badly. Like, people were going out for his head, like, after the first few games of the season. But then after lockdown, he's been one of our best players. Scored 2 goals already, which almost makes him Watford's top goal scorer this season. So
that's similar to us.
Yeah, and obviously he came in. He already had that good connection with Ben Foster because of their time at West Brom. But I felt in the summer last season, after the season we had, that was the summer for the owners to really back Javi Gracia and say, right, we want to push on for European football. And he needed backing in the transfer window. And I don't think the owners did that. And I think we're paying the price for just numerous transfer windows where we've invested in the front line. We brought in Ismail Assar, Richarlison, obviously a couple of seasons ago. Money has been spent attacking wise, and our midfield's still very good with the likes of Etienne Capoue, Abdoulaye Doucouré. But defensively, it's just been neglected. And so picturing someone like Saint-Maximin running at our aging defence, Kiko Feminier's, he's been crap basically since the restart. He was all over the shop in the first 10 minutes against Norwich, and it was his mistake that sort of led to Norwich's opening goal. The thought of someone running at him, or if Adi Mariappa comes in at right back, is terrifying, really.
Yeah.
So there are glimpses that this Watford side can defend. Again, we go back to that sort of point about consistency. We can keep Firmino, Salah and Mane at bay for 90 minutes. But when we come up against a player like Saint-Maximin or Zaha, then we just look all over the place. Someone with a bit of pace, we're not afraid to run at them. So I am pretty worried, yeah.
Yeah, I think we'll score in this game, definitely. Bruce kind of ran our main players into the ground until we were mathematically safe, and then he rested everyone against City, which is why it was such a shambles. So I don't really blame him for that. I'd rather he played our good players until we were safe, and then whatever, instead of sort of relying on the last 3 games of the season where you're running them into the ground. But yeah, we seem to have a good balance about our team now. I think there's a mix of a Rafa squad and a Bruce squad, which is working really well, because what Benitez basically did in the Championship was he bought dependable players who graft and know how to defend, and we've still got most of those players, and then we've spent money on Almiron, which was a Rafa signing, but he didn't have much time with him, and Saint-Maximin, and we've pushed Shelby further forward. So we seem to have a good balance now where we can keep the ball a bit more, because possession stat I think was the worst in Europe in the first half of the season. And I think against Man City we had no one of our players had more than 8 passes. So there are times where we can just completely lose control of a game, but against that is just against the sort of the bigger teams who attack you all the time. So I think that's really the way Watford can have a go at us, is just to control the game. Don't let us run at you with the ball. Weirdly, we don't actually seem that good on the counter-attack, even though we've got Almiron and Saint-Maximin. You'd think we would be. We do seem to be better when we've actually managed to string a few passes together, and we can have Maximin in the sort of the final third running at players. So yeah, it'll be an interesting game. I mean, what's the tactical sort of setup for Pearson at the minute? Is he a 4-4-2 sort of bloke? He comes across that way.
The tactic at the moment is get the ball to Ismail Assar and just see what he can do. It's kind of reached that stage, but setup wise, it's more of I'd say a 4-4-5-1 in defence, and then going forward it becomes more of a 4-3-3. We really have to utilise. Deeney's been really, really ineffective last few games, and it's reached the point now where I'd probably say the majority of what fans are asking for him to be dropped, because he just offers nothing at the moment. Which
he usually has sort of a short period in the season where he's mint, isn't he? And then he doesn't seem to have had that this year. Unless I'm misremembering from earlier in the season, but he doesn't seem to have done that this year. Yeah,
to be honest, I think the lack of crowds is having an effect on Troy, because he really feeds off. He really feeds off the atmosphere. If we're playing a home game, he'll try and G up the crowd, get us going. Away games, he loves having a bit of banter with the opposition fans. He's a Birmingham fan, so playing at Villa Park is always good fun for him. But he feeds off of that, and he seems to just improve his performance when he's playing for an audience. Whether that's a case of the crowd not being there or him not being totally match fit for his displays remains to be seen. But whenever Deeney's on the pitch, we just resort to this hoofball tactic. We play it out fairly nicely at times, and then Capu or Decore will just hoof the ball up to Troy. And if you're coming up against, we've played Burnley since the restart. If you keep doing that against Burnley, you're never going to get.
No, that's playing into the hands completely.
Yeah, literally. And then we played Chelsea a couple of games ago, and Troy again was ineffective, and he came off, and on came Welbeck. And the difference in the last 20 minutes, all right, we lost 3-0, but just the difference in style in the Watford side. It was fluid. It was ball on the floor, pass and move, getting the ball to Welbeck up top. And if we can get the ball out to Sarr out wide, he's our set maximum. He's going to take players on. He is going to get around them quite easily. I don't know what your left back is like. I've forgotten his name.
Well, we chop and change the fullbacks quite a lot. So left back will either be Danny Rose, Mankey, or Richie. Probably Rose again, but he's obviously only here on loan. And he hasn't set the world alight. None of our loan players have. I think your success in this game we're not that great defensively, but if Lascelles is back with Fernandes and we've got our set back four, I think we'll manage to deal with most things, especially if Isaac Hayden's back from injury, who's basically all he does all game. I think his B button's broke on his controller because he just slide tackles all game, and he just breaks up the play. And when he's not there, we do really miss him, and I think that's when we can be exploited. So I think if he's on and we've got our set back four, I'd like to think we can keep Watford out and then get something if we can control the play. But it's always a hard one to predict. When we play Watford.
I think if we resort to hoofball, and I do think Deeney will start, because I think it's just a settled squad now. It's a settled side. If we resort to hoofball, I think you guys probably will win.
We do deal with hoofball quite well.
Yeah.
We set up to deal with hoofball for most of the Championship. And Lascelles knows how to deal with that. We've got a really good keeper who he knows his distances. He can come out and claim it. And our fullbacks sort of lads who can challenge in the air as well. So yeah, I don't think that'll work against us. The teams who always do well against us is anyone who just stands in the number 10 position and we don't know what to do, which is why teams like Man City always obliterate us. And Liverpool have less success. They still obliterate us, but it's the teams that move the ball around us quickly. And people like Lascelles and Fernandes have got the turning circle of a tank. So, that doesn't really work because they have good turning circles, but you know what I mean. So yeah, I think we did a video looking to our last final 5 games, and I think we had this down as a score draw. I think we'll score. I think Dwight Gale will get another run out, and it's the sort of game where he'll get a sort of a prodded tap in and we'll score. But then I just see Watford getting something. Like you say, you've got a couple of good players. You've got Sarr. I could see him maybe winning a penalty and Deeney slotting it away. That's just the way I see the game going in my head, and that's maybe being pessimistic. But we have just come off the back of a massive demolition from Man City, so it's easy to be pessimistic. Have you got a prediction?
Well, Deeney never slots penalties. You don't have to.
He thumps them, doesn't he?
You don't have to be an analyst. Like Troy just like smashing it down the middle. I think you're right. Score draw. I don't know. Depending on this evening's scores, I think if both sides lose, I think Watford might take their foot off the gas a little bit. I don't want them to, but I think they will just naturally. I think.
I'll check the score for you now.
Sorry.
I'll check the score for you now.
God. Okay. I think
still 0-0.
Still 0-0. Thank Christ. I think now Newcastle are mathematically safe. I think I'm anticipating them to take their foot off the gas a little bit.
Yeah, I think you're right with that.
There'll only be 3 games left afterwards. I don't think anyone, now they're safe, can't get Europe, don't think anyone can really be asked. So I hope that's the Newcastle side that turns up, but I think you're right. I think score draw, probably an accurate prediction.
Yeah, I mean, the way you've talked about your team, you've made me think that you're just not a threat at all. But yeah, I think we are a better team. I don't think I'm sort of speaking out of place there. I think we are a better team at the moment. But I do think the way we're performing against City, I do think there's a little bit of there's definitely a foot off the gas feel about the team now, but we'll wait to see whether that was just a one-off because we just saw David Silva playing passes around us and just gave up, or whether it was the fact that we are tired. Hopefully we're back to full strength. Hopefully there's a desire to perform. I think Bruce does get them up for it. So yeah, I think it should be a decent game. Like I say, it's on Amazon Prime, isn't it? It's a bit strange, but yeah, I think 1-1's probably fair. Are we in agreement with that?
I'd agree with that. Yeah, remember you're coming up against the worst team in Premier League history.
Yeah, that's a good sort of thumbnail title. That the best worst team in history. I think we must have had that tag at some point as well, to be honest.
Yeah,
we probably had that when we had Steve McLaren and Genie Wijnaldum, and we should have been great and we were abysmal. But anyway, that's another conversation in itself. Yeah, I think that about does it. I think we've covered most bases there. 1-1 prediction. Watford stay up, Newcastle stay up. We'll face each other in the FA Cup final next year. I'm sure. Yeah.
As long as we don't lose that one 6-0, then that's fine.
Oh, there's no chance of that. Don't worry about it. But yeah, thanks for coming on. It's been great to speak to you. All the best for the weekend.
No worries at all. Thank you very much.